All right, I'm here with my good friend Milan Jensen, and she is amazing. A global leader in sales, marketing, entrepreneurship. She helped lead a team to over 85,000 representatives. I couldn't even believe that. When I saw that, I was like, wait, this is the entire company? She's like, no, that was part of my whole entire team that I built. I was like, 85,000, that's amazing. I'm proud if I could sell a couple policies a week, right? So that big goal to go towards following her. But more importantly than that, she's been through all the ups and downs, the roller coasters that we all go through as business owners and entrepreneurs, whether you're selling insurance or financial products or real estate. The concepts, the foundation, it's really all the same. Maybe a different product here and there, but you have to have a solid foundation. So I'm very excited to have her on board. She's going to share with us some of her challenges that she had, some of her greatest successes, and how to get through those, and then what she's doing to give back. And then more importantly as well, how she actually helps with these different charities and how it can relate back to the insurance business itself. So Milan, thank you so much for hopping on our little show here.
Yay, it's great to be here, Roy. It's so good to just feel like I'm hanging out with a friend.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, totally. I know it's great too. I forgot to mention too that we actually work with you hand in hand. You help us create some really awesome marketing pieces, designs, color schemes, and messaging, because that's really hard. A lot of times, in this business, I think something sounds great. And then to me, it sounds great, but I'm not important. It's what everybody else thinks. So it's always good to have that outside perspective. So we're very fortunate to be working with you. And most all the stuff you see online, if you Google my name, your team's built. So I'm very happy.
We are a good team for sure.
Yes, exactly. Well, so maybe you could tell us a little bit, like, how'd you start? I mean, you went to college and then you said, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Or what was that beginning background and what triggered you to becoming a business owner?
So I feel like I was really lucky because I am the youngest of three girls born to an immigrant family from Holland. And my mother was 8 months pregnant when they landed in Louisiana, much to their shock, I think, in many ways. But
Yeah.
my father was brought here because he knew how to run Heidelberg printing presses. And all the stuff was in Dutch and German. And so that was our opportunity. And my parents thankfully took it. But as a kid, I think I really watched how my parents navigated a world that was unfamiliar to them and created value for people. And in doing that, created an income for our family. And so that whole idea of entrepreneurship was modeled for me all my life. And I think even so much that my parents had, if you can imagine, three kids, $500 to their name,
Yeah.
left Louisiana and came to move to Palo Alto, California, of all places. I don't know how the money lasted long enough, but my father really wanted to own his own business as a graphic artist, and my mother wanted to work at Stanford University in medical research. So here we are, three little kids in a motel, not a hotel, motel,
Big difference.
and in the heart of Palo Alto, California, and we made it work. My parents made it work, at least. But the thing that I learned in those early years was how to not just work somewhere, but actually how to pay attention to how a business works.
Hmm.
And so I think in those early stages, the seed was planted. But unfortunately, in my mom's work, she was exposed to formaldehyde, not a good thing for your
Oh,
body, and ended up passing away of cancer when I was 17. And
wow.
so the very year, I think I had graduated from high school early. That very year, when I would have launched my opportunity to go to college, didn't happen for many reasons. One is I don't think my father even knew how to fill out a FAFSA form or a college application, and I just didn't have a lot of guidance to do that. And so it was go to work. It was grow up fast. It was figure it out. And I was married. I had purchased a home in Sunnyvale, California, and I had two kids before I could
Wow.
order a beer. Good thing is I don't drink alcohol, but all of that happened really
Yeah.
early in my life.
Wow, that's amazing. I think what the average age now getting married is like in the 30s, right? I mean, it's
I know.
that's
It
great.
definitely has flipped.
Wow, okay.
So let's see. From there, I really just kind of worked my way up in companies, watching how their business was done, and ended up, this is such a great sales story, ended up taking a job as an executive search recruiter. If you ever want to learn sales, that's a great place to start, because I remember the day they dropped like about a 2-inch block of list of names in front of me and
Wow.
gave me a little script and said, start dialing. And that's what I did for like 8 hours a day. And I remember on day 3 thinking, oh my goodness, am I even going to last a week in this job? But here's what happened in that, just kind of sticking with it, was I learned how to master the art of a conversation, whether it was talking to somebody on this list of names that didn't, or even trying to get through to that person.
Right.
It was all about, and I realized all of business is really comes down to a conversation. And so I would say that that was the beginning of me realizing that sales and marketing were my sweet spot. I guess it was about an 18-month point, having some success. I took over the agency completely and ended up being its owner.
Wow, that's impressive.
And it was, it was, there was probably, it was small. There was like 5 of us, but I think we had found a way in that rise of Silicon Valley where we were, to do it a little bit differently, and I think the difference was that we weren't rushing. We weren't rushing to make deals. We weren't rushing into relationships. We were establishing ourselves as, we're going to be here, and we're going to be here for the long haul. And so just that kind of stickiness of us being consistent caused us to build a lot of trust with people.
Yeah.
But here's something that happened. I think you have that moment in your work or in your career sometimes where you're just like, I can't keep doing this. And I had placed a single dad with 3 little kids under the age of 10 into a Silicon Valley company, moved him from where he lived Midwest to, found housing, got the kids settled and everything. And in that field, after you have a 90-day guarantee. So on day 89, they basically brought him in, had him create a software technology, or at least, get them ready to do that. And on day 89, to avoid paying what is a pretty decent, substantial fee for the search, they turned him loose. And I remember thinking to myself, there's just, I thought it was a loyalty thing at first, that where's the loyalty? And then I realized, no, it was really an integrity thing. Yeah. And sometimes the two are really interlocked. And so I had to pivot. That was pivot number 1. And it was a big one. And that is leave the executive search and go into human resources.
Wow. Okay.
And so I'm still in the corporate world, but watching businesses. And then I had the perfect storm. I get hired to be the HR director for a direct sales company. So that's taking product to people with people. So it's person-to-person sales. We know it is network marketing but direct sales is kind of the heart of it, because over time that has really morphed. In the beginning, your neighbor would come knocking at your door to do a demo.
Yeah.
And then it kind of morphed into party plans and ladies having, makeup parties and things like Tupperware, things like that. But it really has grown into, I think, a highly respected model for bringing a product to the marketplace. And that's where I really fell in love with the whole idea of marketing and sales, and how can you build a team and create a successful team, limitless, really. What are the systems for doing that? So there I was. I spent the first 15 years of that career moving from human resources out into public speaking. And I think my territory was Canada to Chile, North America.
Well, that's a pretty big territory.
It's big. I was traveling constantly. And I remember that as I was traveling, I was speaking to people about, living your best life and creating financial freedom, and, that your time is your biggest asset, and be true to who you love being. And then I would get on a plane to go say that again, to get into an empty hotel room and go do that again. And the good news is it helped me put my girls through college.
Yeah.
The struggle was the very thing I was talking about, I didn't have myself.
Mm,
And it that's a hard thing to live with every day. And so at the peak of my career, much to everybody's shock, climbing that corporate ladder for 15 years, I quit. I literally quit to take better care of myself and to
wow.
do the things, to live in the values that I was teaching myself.
Right.
And that was scary, Roy.
Oh, I bet. Because how old were your kids at that time?
I had just, Sandy was just finishing college. So, I'd say what, 21, 22,
Okay.
and trying to sort her career out. And luckily, having not had the chance to go to college and then getting my girls through college without any student loans was a big thing for me. And so, yeah, I just knew I couldn't do it anymore. And and if I believed in the things I was saying and the things that I was teaching
Right.
about launching a business, creating a relationship-based sales process, why couldn't I do it myself? And the interesting thing is not many people have been successful at doing that, going from the security of a paycheck to, this commission only based relationship selling thing idea.
Yeah.
But I physically just couldn't speak the words unless they were
Gotcha.
true for me. So that was pivot number two. Pivot number two was get out of the corporate world, go full on into a commissionable situation.
Yeah.
And I took what would be called the master position. So the very top position in a new organization that was just launching. The good news about starting from scratch is you can't just put your toe in the water. Like you're either all in or you're,
0 or
the
100.
chances. That's right. So, because I think people feel that people can feel if you're,
Right.
just kind of halfway in. And so that was in 2006.
Okay.
So 2006, I went full on into this commissionable only, build a team, and all or nothing, mentor,
Wow.
lead deal. And I started, I think I personally, man, I look back, Roy, probably personally mentored about 125 or so, maybe a few more people. My goal was to mentor at least 12 successful people a year. But in that time, that team grew to, I say over 85,000. I think the number was like 87,000 some odd.
That's amazing.
Which is, yeah. And the beauty of that was in the mistakes that I made. So some of the big ones were trying to do too much for people,
Yeah.
and not letting them stumble themselves and feeling responsible for the success. And the truth is, I was not responsible for their success or their failure. I just had to put a solid path in front of them and let them make those choices. And so I quickly learned that in team building, when I was doing too much for people, I would attract people that wanted that. And that can be exhausting. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, no.
Oh, there we go. I
Okay.
said, sometimes it's hard because you want it for them more than they want it for themselves. And I
Totally.
had the similar experiences in a multi-level marketing network marketing group too. I was like, you can do this. And I would spend all this exorbitant energy. And then to your point, you start attracting those type of people that just want to be handheld and they're never going to become independent and be a sales rep to help scale the
Right.
company. And it's a hard balance.
It's a hard balance. And, I'm like, all these people are tying themselves to my kite strings. And like, I can't fly very high anymore because I could feel the weight of that. And
Right.
so, it was really getting refocused. I can't tell you how many times in the 17 years I have really hit a reset button and said, okay, refocus. Am I doing the things? Am I teaching the basics? Are people having success with that? Because even in that window, we went from, one sales process, I call it kind of a belly to belly sales process, to social media kind of taking run of how we would attract and interact with people. And, that was a pretty big shift. And I kind of feel like it's shifting again right now. So, but the nice thing is I was building something that was residual. And did I start thinking that? No. But 17 years later, and at the age I'm at now, realizing that it's on solid ground, and
Right.
whether I'm pushing it or not. Um, and it's like the perfect storm now. I
Yeah.
want to retire? No. I will tell you that that's the final, this is the kind of the final chapter of that career story. There's a point where I could completely retire. And I was starting to kind of look down that path, you know, joining book clubs, golfing, doing all the things. I thought, you know, I actually, Kevin, my husband, met, because we're both in very similar career paths, met a dear friend doing volunteer work,
Hmm.
out doing, you never know who you're going to meet,
Right.
who was just a really solid, seasoned financial advisor all his life. And as we started having conversations, we started to see the parallel
Yeah.
between what we had done and some of the struggles and the work that needs to happen as a financial advisor. And so, as that's how I met you, is just
Right.
really starting to work with, I think, financial advisors that are seeing the future now, of where that career and that business is going.
Yeah, it's always interesting how certain life events lead you to meet certain people and how you can generate lifelong friendships out of it. If I go
Yeah.
back to the very beginning when I was door knocking for selling life insurance, like I would never thought at that time I'd be where I'm at today. And I know I'm going to feel the very same way in 10 years from now. Like, wow, if I never had knocked on that door, it wouldn't have led me to that one conversation, which led me to meet this person. It's just this whole entire domino effect. And
Yeah.
it's always fun. It can be challenging to appreciate the process because it can be frustrating. And you want to be at the next level so bad, but it's always interesting to look back at it like, wow, okay, that actually happened relatively quickly. Like you went from, going from a corporate consistent job to starting from ground zero, 100% reliable on yourself, and then building this massive team that expanded the globe. I mean, you probably, when you first quit, probably didn't think that was going to happen, but then it actually did happen, which is amazing.
It's
Yeah.
true. And yeah, and I think that a lot of that had to do with just kind of sticking on the relationship side of things. And I think there's something interesting about that, because we all kind of look for the easy button or the fast button. Like, how
Yeah.
can I get from here to there in the least amount of effort? And there's nothing wrong with that. I just remember so many times that I had to say to myself, slow it down,
Mhm.
focus on the quality of the relationships you're building, be patient, because one way or the other, when the need arises of every single person I meet, I want them to remember me. I want them to think about me. And I think that's exactly the same in the world that you're in, and any entrepreneur is in. You might not feel a need in the moment, but you want is that connection to stay ever present. And so
Right.
that's really, I think that's really why our business has weathered some big storms. Um, I think we had our peak in 2017 and then went through a really tough run.
Yeah.
Um, for us, it was probably because Facebook changed their algorithm completely.
Sure. Yeah.
And so what used to be simple wasn't simple and free anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got back to, so what do? You go back to the things that work.
Exactly. It's funny because technology is a blessing and a curse at the same time. I remember getting a Google Voice number for free and a Google domain for free. All these great, and then they started charging for it. Then we started doing online marketing, and it was like
Right.
it was virtually free in the beginning, and then it got a little bit more expensive, and then it got way more expensive. We were spending the same amount of dollars, and then doubling those amount of dollars every week, and then we
I
were getting
know.
the results back. And it's like, oh, the algorithm, which I can't even spell algorithm, that changed. And we're like, well, what is this? We have to spend more money on it. But the one thing that kept us consistent was knowing that, hey, look, how did we start this, right? What can actually control? We can't control what Facebook's going to do, but we can control like what we're going to put into our resources, going after
Yeah.
there and keeping that hunger mentality. And I think that's what a lot of people lose, because it's easy to get comfortable with something. And then as soon as that's
Yeah.
taken away, like you could be panicked. But as long as you have that appetite, it's like, I can rebalance out. I've been through worse. Let's figure this out.
Yeah. And I think sometimes what happens is you see somebody else achieving success in a
Mhm.
way that might not be like the way you're doing it. And
Sure.
so it's natural to look over and go, oh, I need to learn that, or I need to do that, or I need to spend my marketing money this other way. And then you realize that doesn't work. It didn't work. Or what you used
Right.
to do doesn't work anymore, like you said. And
Yeah.
a lot of times when I'm working like side by side with an entrepreneur, the very first thing that I say to them when they're kind of in that stuck place, trying to figure it out, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. What am I going to do? I'm like, listen, what you know works. I'm telling you that
Right.
however you built, what you know works.
Yeah.
And if you're, other than that, my next advice, I think, is to get a mentor,
Oh
someone
yeah.
like you that really gets it. And that is shoulder to shoulder with you. So yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Mentors are key. I mean, I remember, uh, one of my very first mentors. Everybody else in a lot of the business models that we were in were like, "Oh yeah, you can do it, go champ," and it wasn't like any real hard conversations,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
easy to
Yeah.
see this big picture, see somebody successful, but I had one mentor that just destroyed me, and then I remember crying sitting there. It was like 9 o'clock at night. He took me out to dinner. It was insurance, and he goes like, "You're not, if you don't change, you're not going to make it. You're going to lose all this stuff. Think about it." Like he was like a drill sergeant, but I
Yeah.
needed that, right?
Yeah.
I needed that like reality, that wake up call. And I was like, okay, wow. So like even today I have a handful of mentors that I call and get counsel from and ask questions about. I'm like, hey, look, what do you think about this? Thanks for being such a good mentor to me. And I think a lot of people sometimes when they reach a certain level of success, they feel like they don't need that. But if you look at some of
Yeah.
the most successful people in the world, they still have mentors. Like there's always somebody that has been through something worse or a similar experience that can actually shed light and give advice. And I'm always constantly seeking that and always open-minded to it because
Yeah.
oftentimes people they just get closed-minded. They're not
Right.
open to anything. And then when something happens like it occurred to you in 2017, where the whole business model shifted, you could rely back on those mentors to help get you through that process.
Right. Right. And I think a lot of people are asking me, like, when they were seeing their businesses decline, like, why isn't yours? And I'm like, it was pretty simple. I went back to what I knew worked. I
Yeah,
went back, and it took patience,
sure.
not to go chase, ad buy and some of the other things people were doing at the time.
Yeah.
But I think that solid ground from a mentor is also a good mirror to have for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, the foundation, like you said, of that mentor, and sometimes you have to switch mentors around or progress
Yeah.
past a particular mentor, but just having that open-mindedness there, because otherwise it's a very lonely world and it's so easy to become impatient. Like I'm hyper impatient. I want something done yesterday, but at the same time, it also helps me if I look in like a 10-year window. I was like,
Uh-huh.
okay, let me get here in 10 years and set micro goals along the way. But early on, I was like, well, I need to be there by next quarter or next month. And then I would just constantly disappoint myself because
Yeah.
it's like, you want to set the bar reasonably. I mean, yeah, there's those big lofty goals, but and it's okay to have those as long as you give them the applicable time frame. I wasn't doing that. I was like, oh yeah, I want to, fly private next month. I'm like, that's not going to happen. I was like 21 years old and had like
Yeah.
$1 to my name trying to sell insurance. Like it wasn't going to happen right away. It took a very, very long time, but with pretty much any business venture, as long as you don't give up and you just keep going through it and you're passionate about it, like you're passionate about your practice, I mean, that passion helps drive you through there and you'll figure out a way to get it done and to actually become successful. Because if you're not passionate about it, then it's not worth the money. You can always make
Yeah.
more money. You cannot make more time. Just like why you left the other job. I mean, you helped that guy
Mhm.
out the very last second they fired him just so they didn't have
Yeah.
to pay that retainer. And that's terrible, but that happens all the time. And you
Right.
weren't passionate about that. If you were, then you would have overcome that and built something there. But it's just funny how your passion can lead you to what you really want to do in life.
It's true. It is
Yeah.
so true. And I mean, one of the things I love that you do is you focus not just on the journey of the entrepreneur, but also, the how many times have I sat and asked myself, what's all this for?
Sure. Yeah.
Because you can get caught up in the logistics and the doing, and then you're like, okay, what's all this for again? And
Yeah.
sometimes that's clear, and sometimes it gets super foggy. But I love that you really encourage entrepreneurs to give back, to look at, whether it's
Mhm.
charity or some other form, that they have a connection to that question of what's all this for.
Yeah. Doing something that's, for a reason bigger than yourself, essentially, right? 'Cause
Hmm.
obviously you got to take care of the core family. You got to be sure you pay the bills before you go
Right.
start donating to all these charities, like cliche, I used to joke around, I was like, I got to take care of the Snarr Foundation first. Let me get my family taken care of. And then, with some excess, let's go ahead and start trying to help some people. And we're very fortunate that now at our business level, we're able to give back and help people. And I know you
Yeah.
do the same thing too. And we always try to encourage other agents and advisors and other entrepreneurs, like, look, it's more than just you. A lot of the times, like when we give back, there's no thank you card, there's no recognition. You
Mhm.
just do it because you want to do it and you know that you're helping people. And that's
Yeah.
the bigger picture of it too, because people will forget you easily. Like, look at the Queen of England. When was the last time you thought about her? Probably one of the most influential people in the entire history of our world. She
Yeah.
passed away, and then maybe a thought or two. That's it. And it's like, who are we compared to that? Right. So it's like
Right.
what you
It's
can
true.
help leave behind is the impact and change that you can make on other people's lives. That's why even today, like if I sell one policy and that policy allows me to help rescue a kid in Pakistan or help take care of a kid at the hospital, they don't know me, right? It's a
Yeah.
there's no, like, you don't get to meet these people, but it's like, wow, cool. I helped that person and I got to help that other person out. And I can tell my kids about that so they can see that as well. And it's like, it's almost like an invisible legacy, but it just makes you feel good knowing that you're actually giving back and helping other people out without something in return for that.
Well, and I think sometimes with giving charity, we think we try to quantify it somehow, or
Mhm.
whether it's by the impact or by the number or the thing that you did.
Sure.
And I think it comes in many forms, though, right? I mean, sometimes it's giving time
Yeah.
and not money, but really truly giving time. It's slowing things down and being available to somebody,
Right.
um, or to an organization. And certainly other times it's giving money because that fuels what an organization is doing.
Right.
But I think it can be even bringing awareness to something. Like if you've got a platform or if you've got an opportunity, are you bringing awareness to a cause or a situation? That's also a way to give. And even just kind of living in the spirit of compassion, that giving
Yeah.
of compassion to people, all of those forms are giving. And I remember learning this from my mother at a time when they're trying to make it work with three little kids. And it was a time giving, not a money giving for a long
Yeah.
time.
Right.
But I agree with you 100%. And I'm so glad you said it. Is it starts in your own home first. And
Yeah.
I've seen sometimes, you have the ability or the capacity to work in an organization or to give to an organization. And then, my question is kind of, well, what's going on at home? What's happening there?
Yeah.
Because we might be fulfilled by the giving outside of our home, but things have to be okay at home first.
Sure.
And I love that you ascribe to that as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. It's like you can't take care of anybody else until you take care of yourself first. And that was
Yeah.
really hard for me because
Yeah.
I'm always like, "Oh, I'll be fine. I don't care about me. I want to take care of everybody else." But it's like the old cliche say, you have to love yourself first before you can love anybody else type of thing. But it's so
Yeah.
true because, before I would try to do things and try to help others, but I wasn't helping out anything at the home. I was like, well, this is unbalanced. Like I need to make sure the home life is good and then we can do extra stuff outside there. And to your point, it doesn't have to be monetarily. I could donate time or
Mhm.
advice or go pick up something for somebody or just do
Yeah.
whatever. It's just the point of going outside of the way of your way to do something and not expect anything in return because everybody
Right.
wants something in return. And to me, it feels so much better giving, whether that be money or time or advice, whatever it may be, versus receiving. I'm a very awkward receiver. Like when somebody gives me a gift or an award, I'm like, ah, thanks. Yeah, okay. I don't know. I'm just weird about it. But I'll just shower somebody with praise. It's just easier for me to do that, and I think
Yeah.
that that's really helped us open up the channels to help so many other people, and we help a lot of agents too. Like, look, they'll come to me like, I don't have the money to help rescue this person or to donate to these funds or these charities, and I'm like, you don't have to. Why don't you just help
Yeah.
them with some clerical stuff or get on the phone with someone? You don't have to always
Yeah.
donate and throw money out, but when you get to a certain level, it's always good to designate some of those profits, some of those proceeds to something much larger than yourself. And it's also a door opener too. I mean, we do it not for something in return, but it's very unique in how this whole universe works, where we'll go out of our way and help people. And we've received some of our biggest clients indirectly from these types of events. And we're not even
Mhm.
asking for them. We're not doing it to get a client.
Right.
That's the other thing. You got to
Right.
do it at a goodwill, and then it naturally flows to you. It's absolutely amazing.
It's true. And I think, for me, the way I would describe my giving up until 2015 was when the need presented and I was able.
Sure.
So, whether it was, tithing to a church or, somebody needed something. And so I really wasn't intentional about it at all. And then in
Right.
2015, our son-in-law was diagnosed with a very difficult form of cancer, which he's cancer free now, 8 years later, thank
Awesome.
goodness. And then our grandchild was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder. And that's when everything shifted for me. And I'm like, if
Wow.
I'm going to, especially from a financial giving perspective and a time giving, I need to narrow this down, because up until that point, a lot of the giving really didn't make any kind of a connection for me. And it was really hard to say yes here, no there. It was like yes
Yeah.
to everybody. It's just not always good. So what happened in that moment is I said, okay, first I'm going to do this. First, I'm going to choose this. I'm going to give here. And I'm going to let that be personal for me. And it also made me much more intentional. So
Yeah.
I just want to encourage anybody that's listening, if you're kind of in that give where the need arises, start thinking about, is there something that really matters to me, that I can kind of drive my focus and attention to from a charity or giving standpoint. I think it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And it's, again, it just all comes back to you, right? It's
Mhm.
because sometimes we'll work with people and say, I've been doing these charitable events and donating time, and I don't know if it's worth it. I'm not getting any praise or thank you. I'm
Yeah.
like, it's not about that. If you're doing it for that reason, those great things are not going to come back to you and happen. So
Right.
it's a part of it. But that's what we tell a lot of our agents, right? Because agents start off with all the same struggles with sales. Then they start having some level of success. It's like, okay, now take care of yourself, take care of your family, get your emergency fund, so that way you can enable yourself to make a
Right.
bigger impact in other people's lives versus just selling them a policy. Like, there's a lot of
Right.
clients I've helped them move before. I'm not saying donate, always offer that,
Yeah.
but as soon as you have a big truck, like when I lived in California, big trucks are not that
Totally.
popular, right?
It's
I
true.
was in the Bay
Yeah.
Area. But as soon as you have a truck, man, everybody is your best friend. Hey, what are you doing this week? And I'm like, I guess helping you move. What's up? Because I already knew what the answer, the question was going to be. Now I'm here in
Yeah.
Texas. Everybody has a truck, right? So I'm like, oh, cool. I don't
Thank
have to help
goodness.
move as much.
Yeah.
you know? Oh
Yeah.
man.
Kevin has a truck, and you're 100% accurate about that.
Yeah. So it's just so much fun because you get to meet and make relationships that way as well. And
Right.
that's really this entrepreneurial process, this journey. The money will come naturally, right? As long
Mhm.
as you're passionate about something, you work hard enough, doesn't matter what you're doing. There's billionaires that sell salt. They don't even make salt. It comes naturally. They just refined it
Yeah.
differently and put a different brand to it. So what the biggest value that I get out of this whole journey, and that's all life really is a journey, is the people that I get to meet and connect with. It's so cool because I can go virtually anywhere in the country. And in my iPhone, what I do, like say if I was coming to California again, well, I'm from
Mhm.
there, so I have a lot of contacts there, but I would search like California. I see all these people and I see the cities and I would call them before I go, hey, look, let's go have coffee. Let's go have lunch anywhere, any state. I can do that,
Yeah.
even in different parts of the world. No, I'm not asking for anything. I'm not going to visit with you and be like, hey, Milan, you want to buy this long-term care policy, this life insurance
Yeah.
policy, or an annuity? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to sit there and have that relationship and have that conversation. And then it naturally comes, which is really hard to do in the very beginning in direct sales,
Right.
because if you're just thinking about selling something like the commission breath, like, okay, let me have coffee. And oh, hey, by the way, here's this great product. It's like, no, don't do that. Like it will come
Yeah.
naturally. You know what I mean? So
That's the patience I was talking about. And
yeah.
sometimes it doesn't come until later, but you need it in the beginning. It's
Yep.
that patience and belief that all of these things are compounding, in your skills and your ability to have those coffees without presenting. Like,
Right.
that's a skill in itself. And so, yeah, it's, if I were to teach anybody in that first year, it would be to start just developing that patience with the process
Yep.
of, letting relationships unfold, and especially in financial services, because people's
Right.
lives change. I mean, that's the other thing about this. I mean, kind of in the final chapter right now, like Kevin goes off and volunteers at a food bank, meets Bill, comes home, and now we're like,
Yep.
we love this profession. And there's some reasons I do, and I just want to share that for a second. So coming from an immigrant family, not having this, this dowry that's left to me, my parents did everything they could to be self-reliant up until they passed, thank goodness. But also teaching me some good values around money. I haven't had a financial advisor. I didn't even really think I needed one or would know what questions to ask them.
Sure.
When the truth is, I probably needed one like when I was 35.
Yeah.
And I had 87,000 people in my team. That's
Right.
when I needed
Yeah.
one. So it's interesting to me that causing people to be open to having a relationship with somebody who's got your back, somebody who's not necessarily selling you a product, but sitting alongside of you and like, okay, let's look at your life. Like, let's figure out where you are and what's next. And I think a lot of people who don't have a $500,000 or more to retire on feel like they're excluded from those conversations.
Yeah.
When in reality, I think that there's a huge opportunity to serve them and help them get there, and much farther than that. So I
Yeah.
remember meeting a financial advisor once, and clearly at that time, I didn't meet what would be considered the portfolio, right? Like,
Sure. Yeah.
and I thought, okay, I guess I don't qualify. And I thought, well, that's just strange. That's strange because I have income, I have a life, and I need a plan. So I'm really not much different than anybody else.
And that, unfortunately, that's a lot how this industry works. But again, we help people from all asset backgrounds and everything because I never wanted to be
Yeah.
that person. And,
Yeah.
to your point, just giving back and meeting with people that, I met Bill through this business as well. He's become not only a great friend, but one of my main mentors I've had in my entire career, which is awesome. And, he gave me time when I was a nobody. Right. Just like the financial advisors, a lot of them won't give anybody time unless they have a $500,000 or $1 million. But those that do, it all comes back. There's probably a lot of people that he's helped that wasted his time, but there's always those few that make it that can actually make it all worthwhile. Right. And that's the same way we treat everybody too. It's like, look, give everybody equal time and like whatever we can do to help out. Great. If not, hey, at least you got to learn something. And if you have that perspective of like this, not judging people and not trying to filter people out per se, but just giving them the respect of the time. You can limit your time, that's for sure, because otherwise it'll run rampant. I've been through that process too. But always be cordial about it, and then the people will naturally come. So anyways, this has been a lot of fun. I always love having a conversation with you and just talking about entrepreneurships, the roller coasters, the ups and the downs. It's great. I'm still just so blown away by 87,000 members. That I want to have that many agents on my team. That's my goal. Okay. That's my that's my new goal. 87,000.
You're doing all the right things.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. And then we'll talk soon.
All right, Roy, take care. Thanks for including me.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.